What is going on, YouTube, and welcome back to Dead Jester Cinema. Alright, by now, you know the drill. I've ranked the final girls of Halloween, and I've ranked the final girls of Friday the 13th. So obviously, I'm going to cap this little ranking trilogy off by ranking the final girls of Nightmare on Elm Street. Now, the determination for my ranking on this ranking video is much like my determination that I use in the Friday the 13th video. It's going to be based primarily off of the effectiveness of the final girl against Freddy himself. But I do reserve the right to have a little bit of bias here because there are some characters that I just like a little bit more than others. One notable omission off of this list, however, will be Jesse from Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2 Freddy's Revenge. Because obviously he's not a girl, he's a guy, he is a final guy. So while a couple of you did ask to rank him on this list, I can't in good conscience to myself put him on here because I feel like in terms of the franchise, he is an island unto himself, and quite frankly, he's kind of a unicorn in the whole slasher genre to begin with, because there aren't many guys that make it to the final round against their villain. It's usually women. So without further ado, let's just get right into this ranking, starting now. While Yvonne is not technically the final girl of Nightmare on Elm Street Dream Child, she is a final girl, so I technically gotta throw her on this list somewhere. And there's no better spot for her than dead last because she's mostly inconsequential to the plot except for one scene. And I also just found her character annoying. I mean, I could be wrong, but it seems like throughout the entire movie she has this kind of attitude towards Alice. Now, I understand Yvonne not believing Alice right away about Freddy using her unborn son to kill off her friends. I mean, who would believe some crazy shit like that? But they maybe could have toned down her being so unsympathetic. I mean, maybe that's just my perception. Maybe I'm wrong. But still, as a final girl, she's just superfluous and forgettable, so she's dead last. The only thing that's saving Tracy from being dead last is that she does fight back against Freddy and has a pretty gnarly dream sequence with her molester father. But I do find her character to be annoying, just like Yvonne. I do like the toughness in my final girls. I mean, it's better than being a screamy damsel in distress, but they really push her toughness and attitude a little too far, to the point where it becomes a caricature. I mean, she's just acting rough to be rough, and that's where I lose interest. But she isn't really the real final girl of her movie, thankfully. But it's not like the real final girl of Freddy's Dead is much better. Speaking of which... Yep, just another piece of crap from the bag of trash that is Freddy's Dead. Sorry, but if you haven't figured it out by now, pretty much everything from Freddy's Dead annoys the shit out of me, and Tracy and Maggie are no exceptions. I mean, yeah, they try to give her some sort of depth by revealing that she is a long-lost child of Freddy Krueger, a revelation that matters more to Freddy himself than it does her character or even us, the audience. But I guess the one cool thing they do with her character is that whenever someone dies, it's like they are erased from everyone's consciousness, but she can remember them. But there's no real payoff to any of that, so who cares? But the only thing that's really saving her from being potentially dead last is that she does deliver the kill shot to Freddy.
Freddy's dead.
Oh, f*** off. Once again, I'm trying my hardest not to let my bias cloud my judgment with these rankings, but I just can't place Nancy from the remake any higher on this list than number 8. But Rooney Mara is a good actress. I've seen her in other films and I really liked what she's done in those. But in this, there's just no personality or likability to her. Not saying she is bad, but in the couple times I've watched this, nothing has stood out. I mean, right from the jump, she is mousy and borderline inaffectionate, and as a character, she kind of just seems to move in slow motion, and I don't feel there's a real arc except for the cheap revelation that at the end that Freddy molested her once when she was a child, which, you know, big whoop. Overall, there are just too many characters that all behave the same exact way, and in some cases probably should have been the lead over Nancy, which says really all I need to say because Nancy in this remake just kind of gets lost in the mix. Lisa from Freddy's Revenge is more the damsel in distress type of a final girl, more than most of the others in this franchise at least. But she isn't completely defenseless, as she does wind up defeating Freddy with love, which, yeah, again, that's just kind of stupid. But in doing so, she also saves the life of her boyfriend Jesse, which does give her a little bit of a leg up over some of the other final girls that were below her on this list. But she is where she is at on this list because there's not really a lot of depth to her character, and I think that's mostly due to the fact that there's more time and energy put into Jesse, who is in that traditional final girl spot in Freddy's Revenge. So more focus was put into his character and his arc, leaving Lisa with not much to do until the very end, unfortunately. I love Lisa Wilcox, and I do adore Alice, but nothing in Dream Child does her character justice. Now granted, the character is pregnant, so it's not like there is much she can do, but she more or less just kind of stands idly by as her friends get picked off one by one, when in just one film prior, she would have been more proactive to try and stop Freddy and save her friends. And furthermore, she isn't even the one to kill Freddy off. I mean, that distinction is given to her unborn imaginary dream son, Jacob, giving even further credence that Alice is just really a bystander in Dream Child. But that more or less is just a microcosm of the plot of Dream Child, and it screams of a concept that's not fully fleshed out, and Alice is caught in the middle, which is a shame. But perhaps that biased love that I have of Lisa and Alice is keeping me from dropping her lower. I mean, I don't know. I do think she does do a good job with the very little she's given to do in this. I just wish there was more for her to do, especially coming off of part 4, but more on that later. Laurie to me is an acceptable final girl for Freddy and Freddy vs. Jason, as her main drama and trauma is with Freddy himself, not so much Jason. While she starts off as kind of a scaredy cat, she does end the movie a little stronger and womans up, and actually delivers the death blow to Freddy by chopping his head off. And yeah, chopping his head off with a machete at Crystal Lake, I see what they did there. As an all-around character though, on the surface, she's hot, but underneath of that, she is kind of dull. Again, placed right in the middle of this ranking for really one reason: she's average. I do like the way that they connected her to Freddy by having her live in Nancy's house. I mean, that was a nice touch. And I do like the backstory of her father being the one to try and suppress Freddy and the nightmares of the town by basically drugging everybody and the children. I mean, when you think about it, that's some dark shit for what is essentially a schlocky monster versus monster movie. But they don't push those elements enough with her character, and I think it all seems tertiary, which is why, again, she's just here at number 5. I really like Kristen from Dream Warriors. Patricia does do a really great job in the role, and she does have great chemistry with the rest of her fellow co-stars, and I do love the special dream powers aspect to her character, as well as the others. Really, Dream Warriors has arguably the best ensemble of characters, and just not Nightmare on Elm Street, but probably all the main slasher franchises, period. And I bring that up because that is what I believe is what keeps Kristen from cracking my top 3, is that I think her character works best as part of the collective group and not so much on her own. Now, this may sound sacrilegious of me, but I think they do more to flesh out her character in Dream Master than they do here. But in Dream Master, they also kill her off, so yeah. What also keeps Kristen out of the top 3 for me is that at first the movie seems like it's going to focus on her as the main protagonist. That is until Nancy returns, then the focus shifts completely onto her, kind of pushing Kristen to the side a bit. And ultimately, she doesn't do a lot or enough to put Freddy away. I mean, that's all Nancy. If I was grading the entire scope of the character between 3 and 4, she would probably be in my top 3. But since I am judging this on a film-to-film basis, she just barely misses the cut. Nancy from the original Nightmare on Elm Street just edges out Kristen to make my top 3, because not only does she prove to be a worthy adversary to Freddy by the end of the film, but let's face it, she is the Jamie Lee Curtis of the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. And other than Robert, I would argue that she is the series icon. What I love about Nancy is her determination to try and take out Freddy, and she's not simply content with surviving, she wants to end him. And the Home Alone way she goes about doing it once she drags him in the real world is exceptionally fun. The only real negative I can point to is that Heather's acting in the role is not really great at times, but I think that's across the board with most of the actors and actresses in this original movie. But I'll chalk that one up to being young and inexperienced. I mean, she definitely comes back stronger in later films. And speaking of which, in New Nightmare, Heather returns to play herself in this very meta entry, and she does take it up a notch. By this point, Heather is now 10 years older than she was from the original film, and she's a little more seasoned to the acting game. And she turns in a better and more solid performance across the board. And I believe a lot of that has to do with, as a character in this movie, she has a lot more at stake. I mean, not only is it her own life that she needs to worry about, but the life of her son. But yeah, I love her in this movie, and I believe that this version of Heather as herself, or as Nancy, however you want to look at it, is her most badass form. But not badass enough to be number one. I absolutely adore Alice, and not because she is a big-time crush of mine, but I love her character's arc. She goes from mousy and diminutive, and a character who daydreams and lacks confidence, to being strong and confident and a badass, and is going to be proactive by avenging the deaths of all her fallen friends. Alice really does have the best character arc of any final girl in the franchise. It's nothing complex or groundbreaking in terms of storytelling. It's very simple, but it's executed perfectly. And beyond all of that, she is also directly responsible for the best kill shot of Freddy in the entire franchise. Plus, Alice to date has been the only final girl to survive her 2 encounters with Freddy in the franchise and not die. So, in my opinion, she's the best, she's hot, and she's number one. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is it. I am done ranking the final girls of the big 3 franchises. How would you guys rank the final girls of Nightmare on Elm Street? Do you think my ranking is pretty solid? Do you think it's bullshit? Please post your rankings below. I would like to see them myself. And as always, like, comment, and subscribe. Adios. Now, GTFO!